All right, we are live. Welcome back to another edition of Elevate Your Grind, brought to you by the Cannabis Lab. I am your host, Todd Rosales, and I hope everybody is having a great week. We're coming to you late this week on a Friday afternoon. Like I said, things have been crazy getting this brand off the ground, but I want to make sure that we are bringing the best of the cannabis industry to you folks every week. So right now we're on pace to do one episode a week. Hopefully I'll get a little bit more time where we can get some more. We're going to start doing some more in-person episodes now that the world's getting somewhat back to normal. So as we start going to conferences, I start hitting the road, getting out to California, Oregon, Nevada. We're going to start doing some cool in-person stuff for you folks. Just announced, and I don't know pricing or anything else from that. C Lab is going to have its annual conference again on February, I want to say 4th through 6th. I'm going to have to confirm with the calendar. So I'm going to awkwardly look at my phone while I continue to ramble until I can find the picture. But folks, the annual C Lab conference, at least the one 2 years ago before the pandemic hit, literally launched my career. I'm sitting here now and awkwardly staring at my phone trying to find a date for you guys. But I did not have a job in this industry when I went to that conference the first time. I went literally looking for a job. Okay, it is February 4th and 5th in Miami, folks. It is going to be a great event. It is a Friday, Saturday. It's going to be very laid back. We're going to have some top names in the industry that will be there. Some of the guests on the show will be there. I'll be there broadcasting live. And like I said, I didn't work in this industry. I just got laid off from a job. My child was just born. I talked to Rob about doing the podcast. I made a ton of great friends at that event. People still talk about that event 2 years later. Unfortunately, last year, we didn't get to do it the way that we wanted to do. I actually didn't get to attend the conference. So we're back. We're in full force. It is February 4th and 5th. I highly recommend attending this conference. If you are a major MSO, like my guest today, you guys should be there. It is the best representation of what the Florida cannabis market has to offer, with a lot of folks that will come from a national standpoint. So folks, that's the annual C Lab conference, February 4th and 5th. As soon as we have pricing and ticket info, I will make sure you have it, but put it on your calendars, save those 2 days because it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, folks, no sponsorship today. Go to Heisman.shop, buy our stuff. Here's our logo. I'm wearing, we don't make this hat yet, so I can't show you this hat. But of course, we've got great merch that I just recently tried on, so it's a little wrinkly and it's terrible. But you can see we've got baseball shirts. We've got everything, folks. I'm going to take the ad space until we get another sponsor. Heisman.shop, check it out. All right. My guest today works for a company that I'm very excited to see what they do in the state, because they took over a company that I was very fond of. I was a big fan of their product. I was a big fan of their management team. So I'm very interested to see what they have to do or what they plan on doing in the state. You know, I like that they're keeping a lot of the flower and keeping a lot of the tradition that this company has done. And candidly, you know, when I started in the industry 2.5 years ago, they were one of the first people I saw that came out with a high quality vape pen and the live rosin pens, right? So, or the live resin pens. So, you know, to me, they were kind of ahead of the curve, being the MSO that was innovative and making sure that some of these newer products that seemed a little foreign to traditional cannabis users were starting to migrate back towards what a traditional cannabis user is looking for. And those vaporizer cartridges, to me, were kind of the start for that. So with that being said, please welcome my guest today, Chris Rivera, the Senior Vice President of Retail Marketing and Store Development at Cresco/Sunnyside. So Chris, thanks for joining me, man.
Thanks for having me. Excited to talk today.
Absolutely, man. So I saw you guys come in. You guys had, taken on one plant as your foray into Florida. Now, this is a really interesting market. You know, one plant, to me, if you look at their numbers on the OMMU and how much they were doing, and again, I'm probably telling you something, hence why you guys did the acquisition of one plant, but their single store numbers were better than anybody else in the state. You know, they were doing as much volume out of their stores, out of 10 stores, that some people were doing it with 20 and 30 stores. And I think that's because they had a very good quality product, and they understood the need that delivery might be first once you win the customer, but you need the physical retail location to win that customer. So I really would love to just kind of hear a general overview of how you guys look at the Florida market, how you're going to approach it. Because as I said, I remember early on, Cresco wasn't always looped in with the other MSOs, especially at the time when like Acreage and Canopy and a lot of the Canadian companies were getting a lot of the attention. You guys were still doing a lot of innovative things. You were buying, legacy flower companies and putting out good products. So I'm really interested to hear considering that to me, One Plant was one of the people who were most in touch with the cannabis culture here, how you're going to bring what you've done traditionally and merge that with what One Plant has done.
Yeah, for
Right.
sure. Well, it's been an interesting year. We closed on the deal in April of 2021. And for us, as we were looking at potential suitors in the state of Florida, One Plant rose to the top. The product that they produce at Indiantown is, in my opinion, the best in the state of Florida. You can see it in the numbers. To your point, nothing new in the fact that the stores, and when we purchased them, they were 8 stores at the time, are producing or selling more flower per store than pretty much every other MMTC. So it's pretty impressive. So for us, this was a ripe opportunity to take a business that had really solid players with really great product and help them scale. What we've done successfully at Cresco Labs over the last 3 to 5 years of kind of growing and moving from state to state. When I started with the company back in 2018, we were only operating in 2 states, and now we're operating in 10 states. So we've learned a lot about how to scale businesses. We had access to capital, we have expertise in what different market trends are. So for us, getting a business that already had a very strong following, a very strong kind of point of view on product that in many ways we don't have at Cresco Labs. The rosin space isn't one that we played in. So rosin concentrates and rosin vapes are very new for us. But everything else we do really well. When it comes to edibles, when it comes to thinking about liquid live resin products, we know how to make tons of offerings that for us, taking a business that had a strong foundation, bringing our ability to scale and bringing our innovations that we have in other spaces was a no-brainer. That's value accretion for us, for consumers and patients who are getting access to more things. So this was a pretty kind of, it was a perfect match in that they had number of stores, number of followings, great products. We know how to scale. We have products that they don't have that we can quickly bring to market because we know how to do it fast.
That's cool, man. Because I never would have thought that, part of the acquisition, especially moving into a market like this one, for me, it's very much, it's a big financial opportunity, but the fact that you have a great cultivation team with the One Plant team and the extraction team, and for them to bring a portfolio of products to Cresco overall that you're not familiar with and be able to actually not only acquire a company that's going to help you guys financially out in Florida, because it is a massive market and obviously it's a limited market with only so many players, but that you can actually take IP from that company and deploy it throughout the other markets where you don't have that. That's a really interesting thing that I think I completely overlooked.
It's been so exciting to see that cross collaboration. So as we have cultivation leaders across many states, they're all really interested in how does Florida create quality rosin products? How do they distribute it? What are the QC concerns? What are the willingness to pay? So we're really deeply diving into what the Florida market has done with rosin and trying to figure out how we take that magic and bring it to other states. And conversely, we're doing the opposite. All of us here in Florida are talking through, well, BHO just got approved as an extraction method. How do we start bringing Cresco liquid live resin to market? How do we bring all the great knowledge that we have on making strong edibles to Florida? So it really has been this really intimate cross collaboration between the teams that's making us stronger each and every day as a company.
That's very cool, man. So you're not just focused on Florida. For you, it's the entire country, right? And I'm looking at the cannabis markets as a whole, right? As we're starting to scale our brand, as we're starting to scale Heisman, and it's interesting because as much as a lot of markets are similar, they all kind of have these little different nuances to them where you kind of have to approach them. I don't want to say culturally different, but like some brand, I feel like the East Coast doesn't really have any dominant brands, especially Florida doesn't have any dominant brands. It's really the dominant cultivators. Like branding is not really a thing, where in California, it is a bloody battle of brands and cultivators together, right? Where I look at as I'm building my own model here, maybe it's too much insight into our business, but it's like, I need a lot more personnel and I need a lot more people who are on my payroll in the state of California as we're building this brand versus other states where I can find true partners that are going to handle a lot of the infrastructure for me as a licensing partner. I'm curious to know, as an MSO, knowing the different cultures, especially somewhere where like California, where there is a long heritage of cannabis and there are a lot of traditions and a lot of things that have been established versus newer markets like the one where you guys are headquartered, like Chicago or like Florida, that has had a cannabis heritage, but it's always just a heritage as cannabis. We didn't have affinities for different growers unless you were truly, truly, truly in the know. Like we just knew that weed came from Florida and it was Florida weed or it was smuggled through here. Like, so I'm curious to know is as you're creating these experiences, as you're tailoring the Sunnyside dispensaries to each market, how do you take into consideration trying to create almost a homogenous experience for the Sunnyside customer who's going to go as they travel to new markets and see you there versus catering to the local market and what those needs are? Because to me, I feel like that's one of the most challenging things for any cannabis company of any size that works in multiple markets.
Yeah, it's a pretty nuanced. Oh, it's
a hard question. And I feel bad for asking it because it's literally what I'm dealing with right now, and clearly I'm struggling with it.
We've been talking about this for a long time, and so give context. I've worked prior to cannabis in alcohol, so I was in beer for a long time, and in beer back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, mass brands ruled: Bud Light, Coors Light, Miller Lite. And what we saw in the turn of like 2000, 2010, local craft, local regionality started to have a bigger impact on the beer industry. So as we currently think about cannabis, right now, all of us have gone from these small regional kind of growers and strains that were cultivated by very specific people and underground knowledge of what was good, what wasn't. And we're trying to now convert that to branding it. And the conversation is, how do you create mass brands that can play in multiple states that still resonate with people, that are somewhat attached to the old heritage of, yeah, I know that grower, I know that, I know that underground delivery, whatever it might be. That's the challenge today. So for us, as we sit and think about launching our brands, we're still very much focused on delivering Cresco's House of Brands. We have over 6 different brands that we deliver, different occasions, different price points, different need states. We're trying to bring that to Florida. We're trying to bring that to Maryland. We're trying to bring that to California. We're trying to create with scale brands that matter, that resonate with people that live in both the suburbs of Illinois or suburbs of Chicago to the downtown Miami resident. Like, we got to figure out how to make these brands sing. And it's been done in industries. Like, this was no different than the turn of prohibition over, when it was just a bunch of bootleggers, moonshine, and they eventually figured out how to brand these things to matter to people. It's the same kind of journey we're all on.
It's interesting, right? Because I feel like anything that goes from underground to mainstream kind of goes through this growing pain where it's like, you have these fans that were super loyal, and it's not just cannabis, it's music, it's online content, it's comedians, it's anything that goes from something that you knew about before everybody else to being mainstream and popular. And it's really interesting that I try to play both sides of the fence with cannabis. I understand, call the suits and the OGs, whatever you want to call that battle, right? Like, I understand the arguments from both sides because I've tried to live in both worlds. Whereas, like, I understand that the corporates coming in here and making money off it and everything else and how bad it is. And I also understand, like, them wanting to keep the heritage, but there's got to be some kind of middle ground. Whereas you can be an underground farm and you can be well known in those communities and everything else, but at some point you need to make money. Otherwise you can't do that forever and you're not going to be around. Right. So, like, as people see success sometimes as selling out, like, you have to make money. Otherwise your product's not going to be here and it won't exist anymore. So I feel like a lot of traditionalists in the cannabis industry have to understand that, like, there are people that are coming in from other industries that are cannabis enthusiasts that were closeted because they had to, because of the stigma for so long. And they're trying to help these underground companies, these companies that are coming to the light, these legacy companies, grow to a place where they deserve to be with all the hard work they put in before they were able to. And sometimes let's look at selling out. But if that doesn't happen, it all goes away. Like, how many legacy growers and legacy products and cultivars and strains did we lose over the last decades because it was illegal and they couldn't do anything and they couldn't scale up and they couldn't, get to the mass markets? Now we have the ability, and as much as it's weird that they have to put Facebook ad, and I know we can't do Facebook ads, but put it in advertising and come up with a color scheme and logos, and it's on t-shirts and it's everywhere. Like, people got to make a living, man. So it's interesting how that is playing out in this space, and that's why I like you equating it to alcohol, right? Um, and obviously it's a pretty easy equation right now, but I see like we are. It's interesting how it all went into and cannabis did this a little abbreviated, where it's all local and craft, like you said, the end of prohibition, and then you had these big brands emerge. And I think those were the big MSOs that came out originally. You know, all the big ones that have come around, and some of them are still doing well, and they're not. And they just branded as that MSO, and then they realized like, hey, we don't have something for everybody, and we're big enough that we need something for everybody, and we need to bring back these little guys and put them on our platform and promote them. And I feel like that's really the successful platform of the future. And obviously, I just kind of rambled on to get there, but I feel like the successful platform of the future is building your big brand and then taking the little brands along for the ride with you and helping promote them, although that could be
100%.
seen as selling out, although it's not.
No, it's going to be an evolving model. I think we're trying to scale mass brands that matter. At Cresco, we didn't go in 100 exclusively on Cresco as the only brand. We actually sell over 6 different brands, as I said, for different occasions, need states, price points. And we've been very firm that we believe brands matter and you need to have different brands for different folks. So right now, as we scale this, the industry is going to change. We're going to start doing different types of deals. Right now, we're specifically in Florida being vertically integrated. I see more licensing deals coming. I see potentially a wholesale market coming. All these things will give more opportunity for a retailer like Sunnyside to carry a smaller brand into our stores. All this will change and give opportunity to smaller legacy growers that currently don't have an avenue. They will as the market changes. I've seen it in Illinois. I've seen it in Pennsylvania. It will eventually turn as the industry matures.
Very cool. When you guys look at the Florida market, I mean, you know, we're at a point now where we might not see recreational cannabis until 2024, and that's when vertical integration would potentially be broken up and we can see some of these smaller players. I mean, is that kind of the time frame that you guys look at internally as at the end of the day, I mean, we all have to prepare for a recreational market in Florida. Right now, we're doing $1.2 billion a year off of 620,000 patients the last time that I checked, right? We did we did 1.2 off of 450,000 at 620 now. The state has a population of over 30 million people, plus multiple tourist hotspots. So, you know, I think in all of our 5-year projections, Florida is a major player for us. You know, what are you guys looking at of when that might potentially happen, how you're going to approach it? Is it the 2024 timeline, you think?
And that is the most aggressive timeline there is. So
Yeah.
we're going to keep focused on the idea that 2024 could be the timing. But again, there's a lot of pieces that have to fall into place to make that happen. That said, as everyone knows, the capital, the time to build infrastructure to get ready for a market that will go, best estimate in the next 2 years as a medical market, we'll see patient growth up to like 700,000. The market will probably go somewhere to 2 billion annually. But imagine when adult use hits, that could be doubling overnight as far as an annual run rate goes. So we need to build the infrastructure today to make sure that when the lights get turned on for adult use, we can meet the needs of what are current patients and what will become adult use patients and tourists. So it's going to be a massively large market. It's amazing to think of Florida when you just take a step back and go, wow, it's as a med-only state serving 600,000 plus medical patients, top 3 markets in the country. I mean, it rivals Illinois that's adult use. And we're just talking to a small population of medical patients today as far as total pop. So it's going to be a fun and exciting ride for not only the large players today, the new licenses that are coming that are going to allow smaller players to get in the mix. It's going to be a large and thriving market. Yeah. So for us right now, we're so focused on preparing for when and if that comes, and you just have to place some bets. And that's going to be building out infrastructure, getting more, staffing up appropriately, and then focusing on making sure that we get the store counts to cover the state. I mean, this state, unlike the one I used to work in Illinois, where the major pop center sits around Chicago, and Florida is unique. 30 million people are spread out between South Central and Northern Florida, and tourists, also have a big impact on sizes of towns over periods of time. So you really got to think long and hard about your retail footprint, your cultivation footprint, logistics and transportation, just to get ready for what's to come, which at the earliest, I think all of us are saying 2024, but it could be 25 or 26. Lots of things
Yeah.
that fall in place.
No, I agree with you. It's interesting. You know, they say that federal legalization might happen before Florida goes adult use, which might be the case. I don't know. But I truly think, and like you said, we're talking to a small community of patients compared to the relative population of the state. And on top of that, they can only buy 2 ounces per month now, which is a significant amount of cannabis. But at the end of the day, there are plenty of people that I know that max that out every month and they're consuming it
Ah,
every month, right?
I see it.
So, you know, it will average out. So it's really interesting. I remember when the first report came out and I saw that Florida was tied for 3 or 4 of the top cannabis markets in the country. And I'm like, how? We have 500,000 people who are legally able to buy weed. It's not like there are people that we're not reporting. It's all tracked in a state system. It's regulated heavily. Like there's not 5 million people we don't know about that are buying weed out the back door of a dispensary because then
Yep.
there'd be missing cannabis. It'd all be tracked. So it's interesting to see how that goes. It blows my mind. And I want to get back to actually to the Sunnyside stores in Florida and your approach on Florida, but I had a little tangent I want to go on. California right now is exponentially the largest market in the country at 4.4 billion. I think Colorado or Arizona just came out of nowhere at like 2 point something, 3 point something smaller, at least a billion, a billion smaller. We have Florida, which is purely medical, and New York, which is purely medical. Both of those have populations that rival the state of California. Now, Texas would be the fourth one, but they don't have a true medical market. New York will go rec in 2023 at some way, shape, or form. Florida is going to come online 2024 to 2026. When we look at maturity, maybe like 2030, do you think that the East Coast in Florida or New York has a chance of eclipsing the size of the California market? I mean, to me, I personally think that Florida will be on par with California just from the population size and the tourism and everything else, because I think that cannabis is universal and the same amount of people consume no matter where they live. It just California is a lot more open about it and less stigmatized. I truly think that New York alone will be the largest cannabis market in the world. And I've said that multiple times. So, like, not the opinion of Sunnyside, the opinion of Chris. What do you think of those 3 states is going to happen when we get to a place where all of them are kind of on par from a regulatory standpoint?
It's wild to think about that the first market that went legal could potentially be eclipsed by the East, but I think your assumptions are potentially correct. The fact that we're doing these types of numbers in Florida with only 600,000 patients, we have the population, we have the interest, we have the tourism. Um, I could easily see your
Who's
prediction.
not going to stop at a dispensary on their way down to anywhere from Key Biscayne to Key West? I mean, or
100%.
Miami for that matter.
100%. These markets will be huge. And that's why you see everyone focused on, I mean, you've seen the growth. You see the current players growing at a pretty rapid pace, and you see new entrants coming every day into the state of Florida. Look at that Planet 13 deal that just got done. That's a pretty massive deal. And that was only really retail that they got. There wasn't much to it. They haven't, as I understand it, I don't even know if they grow in the state of Nevada today, but they're not a cultivation powerhouse. The fact that they're like, we're going into Florida, we're going to figure this out, speaks to the opportunity that sits here.
Yeah.
It's going to be huge. And what's, yeah.
No, agreed. I mean, listen, Cookies has gotten to a point where they own their genetics, but they're not cultivating it, right? And I don't think that's a secret to people anymore. When you look at Cookies in California, there are many, many cultivators that are putting that product out there. And then on top of that, just like how Heisman will be, they're doing licensing models in every other state. Cookies took a chance and said, we're going to own everything from seed to sale in Florida. They don't do that anymore. Yes, they were launched on that heritage, but they don't do that anymore. And they certainly have never gotten to a point where they were growing cannabis at the scale that you're going to need to grow in cannabis. So, like you said, people who are not cultivation experts at scale. I don't want to call them not cultivation experts. And even Planet 13, I'm sure there's a few of them that they have. But people who are not cultivating at a massive scale where you have to support all of your own retailers, you know what I mean? Like let's look at Truly, for example. At some point, a lot of stores are going to have, a lot of companies will have 100 stores, whether it's 2 years from now or whether it's 6 years from now. We'll have 100 stores in Florida. And at the way the market is, you need to have a cultivation that can fill the shelves of 100 stores, right? Even with you guys at 12 to 14 stores that do a significant amount of volume, you need to be able to have a cultivation that always has stock on shelves and of most things. If you walk in, like I'm a Durban julep fan. If you guys don't have Durban julep, I'm pissed, right? For the longest time, and listen, I loved Brady, but every time Mac 1 was out of stock, I would text him because I had his phone number and I'm like, when is it dropping? What the hell? So
Yeah,
I
we've been
agree with you
working
full
really hard on
force.
that problem, by the way. Really
What's that?
focused on it. We've been working hard on that problem. It is hard when you have to be the sole provider of your stores
Yeah.
and you have a limited grow space and you have lots of variety in strains and categories. It becomes a challenge to make sure your shelves are stocked with everything people need. It's everyday struggle for us.
I always looked at this, and you have a little bit more experience seeing the alcohol industry, but when you have these bourbon companies and scotch companies that are selling aged scotch and bourbon that are 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 25 years, and obviously there's, scarcity creates value, but how do you project what you're going to need of your 12-year variety to know what you're going to sell 12 years from now, right? And in cannabis, obviously the harvests are a lot quicker than that. But if all of a sudden your store, if your product catches fire and you have a great harvest and people want more and more, like you may not know that all of a sudden all the demand in the state's going to shift to you because you're getting that attention. And like you said, I imagine that sometimes it's very hard to forecast that.
100% forecasting. We're doing it on a monthly, annual, daily basis because it changes each and every day. Trends, types of shoppers that are coming in, communities that we're opening new stores in. It is a constant battle trying to figure out what to grow, how much to grow to keep it on shelves. It's going to be an ongoing challenge, specifically in a vertically integrated market. Because in the state of Illinois, where I was running Sunnyside previously, I knew Cresco was very good at these strains, these form types, these price points, and then I could go out to the open market and fill in the rest. So I had more flexibility to ensure that my shelves had everything, and I could then quickly go back, look at the data, and say, okay, these things are moving, these things are not, and always kind of optimize my mix. This state of Florida, I'm growing everything that we got, so I got to make pretty big trade-offs and some bets on where we think the trends are going
Yeah.
in order to meet the demand, because otherwise we're kind of stocked out and not making sales and not meeting the patient's needs, which is unfortunate.
It, I'd be interested to hear, when you first, so, obviously with the success that you've had in Illinois and then you starting to take on Florida, where it is an adult use market going to medical, like you just said, you knew what Cresco did well. You knew what you can put on your shelves. You knew where in your store to merchandise that. You knew what other brands to bring in that would put more traffic into the store that would tag on to your products well. So it's like, we know people that are buying these strains also like these edibles, or they like this to accompany it, or people are looking at for can because it'll drive foot traffic. So I can sell more Cresco weed by having can in the store because it can bring more people into the store that otherwise wouldn't come, right? All of those things you can easily look at and analyze. Now, all of a sudden you come to Florida, it's literally a complete opposite. You can't like, you can, I don't want to say you can't build a beautiful store, but you can't build the stores that you're building in Illinois, right? You don't have the freedom of the displays and the marketing and the in-store activations and all that. So you come to Florida, which is a true medical market. Your packaging now has to be white, opaque, and uniform, right? Your stores have to be relatively bland, and there's ways around that, but from a picturing standpoint and a marketing and cool stuff standpoint, we'll call it relatively bland. And now it's only your products on the shelves. You don't have the ability to go out and say, well, that's selling well, let me go grab that so it'll drive more traffic to my stores. And then on top of that, you have a small market that you can market to because they're the only people who are allowed to buy your product. How much was it a challenge? Was it going from one, call it almost like more of a seemingly normal business environment to almost truly getting into the pharmaceutical side of things? I mean, what was that like for you personally to take on that challenge?
Oh, it's been an interesting transition. The good news is we had a good infrastructure here, so it's not that I'm coming in and there's nothing on shelves and we're making product, we're meeting demand. So has it been kind of a rough awakening? Yes. The things I was easily able to lean on, my packaging, my marketing, advertising, in-store activations, all of that's gone away, which has to some degree, kind of in a beautiful way, really allowed us to focus on quality of product exclusively. Because there's no other bells and whistles that we can deliver outside of promotion and price. So it has been a little bit of a change, a drastic one, but at the same time, it's kind of inspiring because it really forces you to get entrepreneurial and try to figure out quickly how we're going to make sure that the quality of the product, the talk value of the product is high, because ultimately that's what's going to be driving people to the stores.
Yeah, and I'll be, I tend to do this with people while we're on the podcast. Like I'm looking at your menu right now, specifically for the Boynton Beach store, because I'm selfish and that's the closest one to me. You have
Which
39
one?
Boynton Beach.
Yeah, Boynton Beach. Yeah.
I, it's always great to go to the Boynton Beach store and then hit Bud's Chicken and Seafood for some munchies on the way out. But
I think if you look at that menu today, I'm really excited about that menu. I mean, we got a ton of flour variety. There's some
39
good
flour products on the menu right now.
for us, given where we've been. Like you said, Durban Juleps on menu, Max on menu. It's a pretty solid variety and good price points, because we got some at 30, we got some at 50, we got different potencies ranging from 13 to 24 likely. You got a strong selection of concentrates. I think there's I think when I last looked, 4 or 5 different SKUs.
And I think you guys are the only ones that have rosin carts in the state.
Correct. And we're doing a great deal on rosin carts now, 2 for $90. So that's a nice $45 price point on what is a typical list price of $65. So strong value coming in the rosin carts right now. So we're always trying to play with the right mix assortment, the right pricing, some good promotions in the mix. So there's something for everyone. I think where our portfolio has opportunity is continuing to do innovation in vapes. So really looking at offering stronger distillate options, bringing BHO into the mix. I think there's edibles is a big kind of opportunity for Sunnyside, which we hope to have solved by February, March of 2022. So that's exciting. But I think for most shoppers, they're going to find something with variety and price that they're looking for at our stores.
Yeah, I mean the cool thing is you guys has traditionally in one plant. I'm actually wearing the original shirt from the one plant opening in Boynton. It's got. If you look on the back, you got
Oh yeah. And the Boynton Beach store too.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, like I said, I've been an actual client of one plant for the longest time. So I think where the advantage you guys have now, especially going into all those other categories, is they've been a flower first company for a while, and it took them a bit to get into concentrates till their flower is dialed in to be at a place where it should be concentrated, right? So I think you guys have a good base for all of the things that you're doing to put out really good products with the edibles and anything else that you're doing.
And that's all coming. Like you're going to see a big push in the oil like segment. So in the next 3 to 4 months, you're going to see new brands start popping up on Sunnyside shelves. We'll be bringing our Supply brand into the state of Florida, which is mainly vapes and disposable pens. We'll start launching our edibles brand, which will be branded Sunnyside. And we'll be delivering more measured products and medicinals, like more tinctures. We need to start offering 5-to-1s, 1-to-1s that we currently don't have. So you're going to start seeing a real kind of filling out of the portfolio to make us a full service dispensary that meets not only the core shopper that we have today, but hopefully bringing in new shoppers that go other places, because we don't currently have the inventory that they're looking for.
Very cool. I'm curious to know, a lot of other MSOs at this point, they've established their brands. You guys you're in a unique situation to me, is because you're bringing in the sun. To me, it's you bought the one plant product set. You bought the product. You bought their kitchen and their chefs, right? And you're bringing in a whole new front of the house, right? You're taking them from mom and pop dive restaurant and putting them on a national scale. But you got the same chefs in the kitchen. You got the same people who know how 100%. To do it. So to me, you bought a brand. You bought a cannabis brand in Florida, and you're bringing Sunnyside, the retailer, into the state, who knows how to handle retail and knows how to give a great retail experience and knows how to handle customer service and all of that. And then you have that trusted Florida weed brand. I'm curious to know, because other companies have had to do this in the opposite direction, where they established themselves as a retailer. They had a brand that did okay, but then they wanted to kind of build on some of that hype. So like, for example, Trulieve brought in Binsk and Bellamy Brothers and all those people. And at the end of the day, we all know that in the state of Florida, it's just their genetics for the most part. Sometimes they bring in some people from those companies to make sure that the SOPs are done right and that the settings and the grow and all that. But at the end of the day, I'm curious to know, is part of your strategy is to say, okay, we have this great heritage brand in one plant, but that may not be enough to sustain it long time. You're going to bring your Sunnyside brand, which is successful elsewhere as well. Is there a plan for additional brands in this state to go into the Sunnyside, where you guys would obviously have to essentially figure out who has great genetics that you would bring here and work well with what you guys are doing. I'm just curious to know, is that a plan, or are you going to sit on the 2 brands you have for now?
We're going to be expanding our brands that we currently have in Illinois and many other states to the state of Florida, because we're going to have a house of brands. So when you come to Sunnyside, you won't just have one plant. We expect to have at least 5 to 7 different brands that meet different consumer needs, occasions, and price points. Down the road, could there be opportunities for licensing deals and new genetics from other players coming into the mix? For sure. We're into that. At the end of the day, if there's a demand for it, we're going to make sure that if our brands are in play, that we continue to grow by bringing in new news, new interest, so that we bring shoppers into the door. So we're going to figure that out. But right now, at the infancy of trying to convert one plant to Sunnyside, it's about keeping the one plant brand in-house, humming along with the same folks that have been growing it since the company was started, and ensuring that we start using those same folks to build new products that consumers are going to be as excited for. And then eventually licensing deals, this, that, and the other would be fantastic for us to start considering. But it's probably going to be a 2 to 3 year journey for us as we get ourselves established with our brands.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, when you look at brands coming into Florida, it really has to be a company that's a true genetics company, right? Like, and that, because in Florida, you're still responsible for it. So you're basically going out to someone and say, like, your beginning product is so good that we need it here and we think it will do well. So I actually really respect the way that you guys are doing it, because we kind of know what's going on here in the state of Florida, just based on the regulations, right? It's not the same business flower I'm getting out in California, because it can't be. So, and nobody even needs to talk about it. You don't have to weigh in on this. The fact that, how do you actually get it here if it's not legal? So, a lot of people don't talk about that. So you guys, your genetics were here when you got here. So, so yeah, man, listen, I know we've talked a lot about the market and your approach and the differences in the market and gone off on so many tangents, but as you look at where Sunnyside is positioned with, the stores that you have, with what the roadmap looks like, what are you most excited about over the next 1-2 years in the state of Florida as you continue to grow this brand?
Yeah, we're excited for so much. I mean, ultimately, with Indiantown growing the quality product, the power of the house of brands that we have at Cresco, and the ability to scale, I'm just excited about opening doors over the next 2 years. We have a pretty aggressive plan. We currently have 11 stores. By the end of the year, we're slotted to have 16 stores. Wow. And I think it's fair to say that we're going to continue to really push hard to get access across the state, so that we can carry this great product to more doors, more folks. And that's what I'm really excited about, because ultimately the game here for us coming to the state was just about scaling this, because it was already a really good proposition. There's nothing that we're fixing here. We're just adding and giving it scale. That's what's the beauty of this deal in Florida for Cresco Labs. And I hope for patients as well, because getting access to strong quality medicine is important. And the fact is, we're going to be we just opened the Panhandle. We opened Tallahassee about a week ago.
And a great location too, right on the corner of Monroe and Tennessee. I went to Florida State, so I know that former gas station very well.
You do, and it's transformed. People walk in, they're like, "Whoa, what happened here?" It's a fantastic location.
I used to manage the Mike's Liquor and Beer Barn right down the street.
Right down the street, yep. And we're going to open Pensacola in about a month. So within a matter of Cresco taking over in April, really not starting work until June, we made some pretty big strides with opening up Fort Lauderdale, Oakland Park, Tallahassee, and Pensacola. And we got a long list of more stores coming over the next 7 to 8 months.
Very cool, man. I don't know if you're able to answer this or not, but how soon until there is a store somewhere between Fort Lauderdale and Boynton Beach?
Ooh.
I mean, Boynton Beach isn't that far for me, but I'm lazy. I'd love a Delray or Boca store.
5 months, 5 to 6 months.
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to say where?
Not at the moment. The deal isn't that done.
Don't worry about it. I try to get everything I can. Listen, man, we gotta wrap this up. But before I let you go, any promos, websites, social media handles you want to get out there? Let's get the plugs in.
Sunnyside.shop is the place to go to see our menu and inventory. Of course, we'd love for folks to follow us. We're at Sunnyside dispensaries on Facebook and Instagram. Those are the big call outs, but really excited for folks to sign up on Sunnyside.shop and change in your account profile and sign up for email messages. We are going to get more and more aggressive when it comes to promotion. And that's the best way to learn what we got going on. Of course, visiting the website, but it's always nice when we can push to your email and let you know about a rosin deal, a flower deal, promo we got going on. That's the way to get it done. Go to Sunnyside.shop, create a profile in your account, say select marketing messages, and we'll make sure that we get you all the good stuff that's happening at Sunnyside.
Very cool, man. Like I'm on the website right now and you guys have a ton of great promotions. Just looking at the pre-roll section itself, you've got 15 different pre-rolls. You've got 39 flower products out right now, plus all the vapes and everything else. Like I think you guys are doing great. I think you're doing a good job carrying the one plant torch. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Awesome. Thank you for the time today.
Absolutely. And thank you to everybody at home for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Of course, if you missed any part of this episode, it'll be up on our YouTube page on Monday at youtube.com/elevateyourgrind. If you don't have the ability to sit and watch it in person, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or anywhere else where you get your podcasts, folks. We are done for this week. We'll be live next week with the head of the Canadian Securities Exchange. What day that will be, sometime between Tuesday and Thursday, who knows? We'll figure that out and we'll be here for you. Folks, have a great weekend.